The Mist. Stephen King himself said that Frank Darabont's ending was better than his original story, and honestly, he's right, and that's terrifying. After spending the entire movie watching David Drayton and his group fight for survival against interdimensional monsters, we get the most gut-wrenching finale in horror history. David runs out of gas with his son and 3 other survivors trapped in the car, surrounded by creatures in the mist. With only 4 bullets left and 5 people in the car, David makes the ultimate sacrifice. He shoots everyone else, including his own son, to spare them from being torn apart by monsters. Then he gets out of the car to face his own death, and the mist starts to clear. The military arrives, the monsters are defeated, and David realizes he could have waited just 5 more minutes. Thomas Jane's performance in that final moment, the silent scream of a man who's lost everything for nothing, is absolutely devastating. The movie asks what you'd do in an impossible situation, and then punishes you for making the logical choice. The Blair Witch Project. This ending still gives me chills because of how it completely subverts your expectations. After following Heather, Josh, and Mike through the woods as they slowly lose their minds, we finally reach the abandoned house where Josh's screams are coming from. Mike runs downstairs and suddenly stops moving, just standing in the corner facing the wall. Heather follows, camera shaking, and then her camera hits the ground and everything goes silent. The movie ends with that image burned into your brain, Mike standing motionless in the corner like the witch's previous victims. What makes this so dark is the inevitability of it all. The Blair Witch has been playing with them from the beginning, driving them in circles, breaking them down psychologically before finally claiming them. The found footage style makes you feel like you're the last witness to their disappearance, and then even you get cut off. Rosemary's Baby. Roman Polanski crafted one of the most insidious horror endings ever put to film. After an entire movie of Rosemary suspecting that her neighbors are part of a satanic cult trying to use her baby for their rituals, she discovers the horrible truth. They succeeded, and her child is literally the Antichrist. But here's the really dark part. Despite everything they've done to her, despite drugging her and essentially forcing her to give birth to Satan's child, Rosemary can't help but love her baby. Mia Farrow's performance shows a mother whose maternal instincts override even the most horrific circumstances. The movie ends with Rosemary rocking her demonic child, accepting her role as the mother of the Antichrist. She doesn't escape, she doesn't fight back, she just gives in because that's what mothers do. It's a devastating commentary on how maternal love can be both the most beautiful and most tragic human emotion. Before we dive deeper into cinematic despair, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments, which horror ending left you staring at the wall questioning everything? We're all trauma bonding over fictional nightmares here. The Thing 1982. John Carpenter's masterpiece ends with the ultimate paranoia trip. After spending the entire movie watching the alien organism systematically replace and imitate the members of an Antarctic research station, we're left with just Mac, Reddy, and Child sitting in the burning wreckage. They're both exhausted, they're both suspicious of each other, and they both know that one of them might be the Thing. Kurt Russell and Keith David play this final scene with such weary resignation that you can feel their despair. They're probably going to freeze to death anyway, but they can't even trust each other enough to share body heat. The genius of this ending is that it doesn't matter who's human and who's the Thing. Either way, humanity has lost. If they're both human, they'll die in the cold, and the Thing will eventually thaw out and escape to civilization. If one of them is the Thing, then the organism has already won. Sometimes there are no good endings, only degrees of failure. Night of the Living Dead 1968. George Romero created the template for zombie movies and then delivered one of the cruelest endings in cinema history. Ben survives the entire night fighting off zombies and racist humans, only to be shot by a rescue party who mistakes him for one of the undead. Dwayne Jones's performance throughout the film shows a man fighting not just monsters, but also the casual racism of his fellow survivors. He proves himself the most capable and level-headed person in the group, and his reward is getting killed by the very people who were supposed to save him. The newspaper-style photographs during the credits show Ben's body being dragged away with the zombie corpses, treated like just another piece of meat to be disposed of. The real horror isn't the zombies. It's the humans who are so quick to dehumanize anyone who doesn't look like them. The Wicker Man, not the Nicolas Cage B-movie, the original British folk horror masterpiece. Sergeant Howie arrives on Summerisle to investigate a missing child, only to discover that he's been lured there as a sacrifice for the islanders' pagan harvest ritual. Christopher Lee delivers one of his most chilling performances as Lord Summerisle, explaining to Howie that his Christian faith and virginity make him the perfect offering to ensure a good harvest. The entire investigation was a setup. The missing girl was never in danger, but Howie was doomed from the moment he set foot on the island. The final scene of Howie burning alive in the Wicker Man effigy, singing hymns as the islanders celebrate around him, is absolutely haunting. Edward Woodward's performance shows a man clinging to his faith even as it fails to save him. The movie suggests that all belief systems, whether Christian or pagan, can be used to justify horrific acts. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978. Philip Kaufman's remake of the 1956 classic delivers one of the most hopeless endings in sci-fi horror. After spending the entire movie fighting against alien pod people who replace humans with emotionless duplicates, we think Matthew has survived and maintained his humanity. But then Elizabeth approaches him on the street, and when she calls his name with relief and joy, he opens his mouth and lets out that inhuman shriek, pointing at her like the other pod people do when they spot a human. Donald Sutherland's transformation from hero to monster happens in a single moment, and it's absolutely devastating. The ending implies that the invasion is complete, that humanity as we know it is extinct. Elizabeth's face as she realizes that the last person she trusted has been replaced is heartbreaking. Brooke Adams sells that moment of ultimate betrayal perfectly. The look of someone who's just realized they're completely alone in a world full of monsters wearing familiar faces. The Descent. Neil Marshall crafted two different endings for this claustrophobic nightmare, but both are absolutely brutal. In the international version, Sarah thinks she's escaped the caves and the crawlers, only to wake up and realize she's still trapped underground, hallucinating her escape while the creatures close in around her. The US theatrical version shows Sarah actually escaping, but she's so traumatized by watching her friends die and discovering that Juno had an affair with her husband that she deliberately crashes her car rather than face life alone. Either way, Sarah doesn't really survive. She either dies in the caves or chooses death over living with her trauma. Shauna Macdonald's performance throughout both versions shows a woman being systematically broken by grief, betrayal, and terror. The crawlers might be the movie's monsters, but the real horror is watching Sarah lose everything that made her human. The Babadook. Jennifer Kent's psychological horror masterpiece ends with Amelia seemingly defeating the Babadook, but the final scene reveals something much darker. She's keeping the creature locked in the basement, feeding it worms and telling her son that it's quiet today. The implication is that the Babadook, which represents grief and depression, never really goes away. Amelia has learned to manage it, to keep it contained, but it's still there. Essie Davis's performance shows a mother who's learned to coexist with her trauma rather than overcome it. What makes this ending particularly dark is that it's probably the most realistic one on this list. Real grief doesn't get defeated in a final confrontation. It becomes something you have to live with every day. The monster in the basement is a perfect metaphor for how we deal with psychological trauma. Hereditary. Ari Aster's family nightmare builds to one of the most disturbing climaxes in recent horror. After watching the Graham family destroy itself through supernatural manipulation and psychological trauma, we discover that everything has been orchestrated by a demon-worshipping cult. Peter's final moments, controlled by the demon Paimon, surrounded by cult members worshipping him as their new vessel, show the complete destruction of free will and identity. Alex Wolff's performance throughout the film shows a teenager being systematically broken down until there's nothing left of the original person. The movie ends with the cult achieving their goal, summoning their demon king into a human host, but the real horror is that this innocent family was manipulated and destroyed by forces they never understood or even knew existed. Sometimes evil wins not through strength, but through the simple advantage of knowing the game while others don't. These endings work because they violate the basic contract of horror movies. We expect the heroes to triumph, or at least survive. We expect some kind of justice or resolution. Instead, these films show us worlds where good intentions don't matter, where doing the right thing gets you killed, and where sometimes the monsters win simply because the universe is indifferent to human suffering. What makes them particularly effective is that they force us to confront uncomfortable truths about reality. Sometimes there are no good choices. Sometimes sacrifice is meaningless. Sometimes the systems we trust will fail us, and sometimes the people we love can't save us from our own darkness. These movies don't just scare us in the moment. They change how we see the world. They remind us that safety is an illusion, that evil can wear familiar faces, and that sometimes the most frightening thing about horror isn't the monsters. It's the possibility that there might not be any heroes coming to save us. Alright, that's my breakdown of horror's most soul-crushing endings. Which one kept you awake at night? Are you still paranoid about pod people after Invasion of the Body Snatchers? Still checking your basement after the Babadook? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this journey through cinematic despair, hit that subscribe button and tell me what other horror topics you'd like me to explore. Apparently, we all love being emotionally destroyed by fictional scenarios, so bring on your most disturbing recommendations.